Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the December 16th, 2021 regular City Council meeting to order. I'm going to lead us in the pledge tonight. I pledge allegiance to the
flag
of the United States
of America,
the Republic,
which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, let the record show that all council members are present. Council, I have a few acknowledgements tonight, and because one of them is for someone who is only going to be with us for this portion of it. I'm going to start right there as part of the presiding officer's report. And so I'd like to take a moment to recognize someone who has been instrumental with the Marina Redevelopment. And his name is Robert Holmes. Robert's taught us a lot about opportunities, the ones that we could have, and how we could actually get them and get people to pay attention. He's also brought key players to the table, and he's helped us understand what a bright future looks like for the city. He showed us the possibilities. He helped us see the various potential. He's just been instrumental. And I have to say that his work with us has far exceeded both understanding and expectation. So with that, I'd like to recognize Robert. Let's see if I can hold this up. It's kind of hard to see. And it reads, Robert Holmes, consultant extraordinaire, friend of the city, with our gratitude. City of Des Moines leadership team, December 2021. You know, one of the things that makes Robert stand out a little differently is that when he came to the city and started working with us, he was a consultant. But he really developed a true love and respect for what we are, what we have, what we are, and what we are trying to do. So anyway, it's my pleasure to recognize Robert as a friend of the city, and Robert is not here. I think on award shows, they normally say that the city clerk will accept this on Robert's behalf and see that it gets to his office. So with that, I believe Robert's on the line. Robert, would you like to say anything?
No, I just thank you very much. Very, very thoughtful, Mayor, and to members of the City Council, very, very, very thoughtful acknowledgement. And it's been my pleasure to work with Michael and you all, and I look forward to continuing that. I think we're in a pretty good shape. We were very fortunate to have a very strong showing of interest in the RFQ, and you've made a selection for a group to work with, and Michael and his team are hard at work on those agreements and that, and so I'll look forward to continuing to be of assistance. Thanks so much. Happy holidays to you all.
Thank you, and happy holidays as well.
Okay, thank you.
This takes us forward to our correspondence.
Thank you, Mayor. We have no correspondence. And the following have provided written public comment. Rob Anderson, City Manager raise. Christy Brain, City Manager salary. Ted Doviak, Anthony Martinelli must resign immediately. Rick Johnson, another City Manager raise. Bill and Patty Linscott, City Council should remain involved with approval of Marina rates, draft ordinance number 21-055. Tony Mills, no to City Manager Matthias wage increase. Todd Powell, council should not relinquish its role and authority to set moorage at the marina as proposed. Jason Remy, thank you, Councilmember Martinelli, for standing up to bullying and not resigning. Samantha Scown, City Manager, and Ben Stewart, draft resolution number 21-055. And Mayor Harry Steinmetz is in the meeting to give a public comment.
Harry, if you unmute, you are live. Good to go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Funny thing happened when I stopped by City Hall today. I got sworn in, And I would like to thank everybody who was there and congratulated me. But this is about what I want to address is the fact that you and Ms. Bangs are leaving the council. I got to know Louisa fairly well through the appointment process and watching her on the council. I know her heart has always been in the right place. She's been pretty firm and tough with people. I remember a committee meeting that Matthew Mahoney and I showed up to one time, and before he was elected and while I was running the first time, and we got in the middle of that meeting and she shut us down pretty quickly. So I've always had a lot of respect for her, and I think she's been a very good member of the council. She's also been my friend in sci-fi. I still think she's Dominic Dawes's long lost sister. For those who watch The Expanse, they'll understand that reference. But Louisa, you will be missed, and we appreciate everything you have done for the council. And Mayor Pina, you know, I was completely shocked when you decided not to run. As you said in your endorsement, we don't always agree on everything. But I think there's a lot that we do agree on, and that's the long-term goals of the city. I know that you have always done what you thought was right for the city, and I respect that tremendously. So I want to say thank you very much for your time. Your service to the city over 12 years has been extraordinary, and I just wanted to say thank you for your time, and you will be appreciated. I know that both you and Ms. Bangs will stay around and be present, and your insight and wisdom will be appreciated. So thank you both very much for your service.
Thank you, Harry, for your kind words.
Thank you.
Now it's time for the city manager's report. Michael, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. It's great to hear the words that Harry just said. I'm sure that we all share them. So we appreciate that, Harry. Tonight, I just want to focus on one issue, and that is our public safety response to a number of challenges and incidents that have occurred on Pack Highway. And there's a lot of press going on around this. I know the chief just had a recent interview with the media, maybe an hour ago or so. I just want to recount that. There's been discussions about meetings with mayors that are occurring, meetings with Dow Constantine, critiques of the prosecutor's office and so forth. And primarily the mayors involved in those have been the strong mayors, Federal Way, Auburn, Kent, Renton, and Des Moines has been doing its work on a slightly different level. And that is the level of developing. The chief was very instrumental early on. I think you came in at 10 on that Saturday night, chief, and not only did a patrol process, but also worked on developing a plan. And so the chief and a number of us who had input into that developed a response to what's going up on Pack Highway. And that response has been adopted by a number of cities and referenced by a number of cities. And a number of cities have asked us if we wanted to partner in regard to the implementation of that plan. So far from the allegations that you don't see Des Moines involved, in fact, we're not only involved, but are the architects of much that's going on. And I'll leave it with the chief to speak a little more about that. But let us say that this city has made a very conscious decision, and I'm sure other cities feel the same, that no element of this is political. This is about police dealing with situations made more difficult to deal with recently by changes in laws. And Chief, maybe you could recount a little bit the incident that happened yesterday with our officer, but what the nature of the offender and his kind of track record was. But with that, I just wanted to tell you that the police chief has my complete support and his team, all the law enforcement officers. And the council and myself have told the chief, tell us what you need and we will find a way. And there is nothing off the table. And I think that the chief is one of those people that, if he asks for resources, it's because he has a plan to strategically deploy those resources. It's not just numbers, but it's accomplishments and operations. So with that, Chief Thomas, if you could fill us in a little more, that would be great.
Yes, good evening and thank you very much. Our top priority in the police department is to, number one, to keep our community safe. But I will tell you the majority of our resources right now and our focus is to deal with the violence and disorder along Pacific Highway South. So the city manager talked a little bit about an incident that occurred yesterday, and it really illustrates what we're working with up along Pacific Highway South. Our officers responded to a call of somebody breaking into cars, and the owner of the business confronted the suspect, and the suspect spit in the business owner's face as police were responding. When police arrived, they tried to take the suspect into custody, and the fight was on, and one of our officers was significantly injured and taken to the hospital for treatment. Well, as it turns out, the suspect was arrested, and we learned that suspect has been arrested on 47 occasions and for 13 felony crimes. And that is the type of person that we're dealing with up along Pacific Highway South, serious violent offenders who may have mental health issues. And the city manager also spoke of the mayors in our region who are having some meetings with the county executive and the King County prosecutor, and I wish them the very best of luck. I know they have challenges with a backlog of homicide cases, a backlog of other cases, and I would hope, and as I mentioned to one of them this morning at a meeting, just like the police, I'm not allowing us to use the new laws as an excuse. The taxpayers expect us to figure it out and move forward. And I would hope that the prosecutor's office would do the same. Yes, you have a challenge, you have a backlog. Now our community needs you to figure it out and move forward so we can keep our community safe. So I'm very hopeful for those meetings with King County and that we have a level of accountability. Before I get to our meeting that occurred this morning, I just want to briefly talk about, I was in Sacramento earlier this week at a board meeting for the Western States Information Network. And normally at the end of those meetings, we have a roundtable where we talk about what's going on in your state, what's going on in your state as we go around. So California, crime's out of control, things are difficult. Oregon, geez, have you seen Portland lately? It's completely out of control. We're having a difficult time. For Washington, say, gosh, we're seeing violence like we've never seen before. We have enormous violence, our crime rate's up, we're having a tough time. We get to Alaska, and the representative from the Attorney General's office in Alaska says, gosh, we're seeing something completely different in Alaska. Every one of our property crimes is down by 30%, and our violent crime is down by 30%. So of course I say, gosh, what are you doing? What has changed? What is the cause of this? And the representative from Alaska said, because our community got angry. The residents, the citizens of Alaska got absolutely angry and fed up with crime and disorder and negative things occurring for their quality of life. And so they changed some of those police reforms, and the pendulum came back a little bit, and they're holding people accountable. And with some accountability, they're seeing a drastic reduction in crime and an improvement in the quality of life. So just a small anecdote that should be obvious, but that was just a little example of what happened up in Alaska. So back to this morning, I'll tell you this morning, as part of our five-prong test five-prong approach that I've already spoke with the council about. One of those prongs, which just a brief review, behavioral health workers, code enforcement, high visibility patrols, engaging the community. But the one that we had the meeting on this morning was working with the federal government on our approach to gangs, guns, and drug crimes. So 50 representatives from supervisors and detectives from agencies in South King County, the FBI, the DEA, the ATF, Homeland Security, and actually the Secret Service even showed up to the meeting. And we spoke and developed a plan and developed a multi-level approach, short-term approaches and strategies, long-term approaches and strategies. Unfortunately, tonight, I'm not able or willing to provide our specifics on exactly what we're going to do. That would kind of defeat the purpose, other than to let you know we are going to approach this issue of crime and disorder at a multifaceted level and conduct investigations and do everything within our power to address the violent crime along Pacific Highway South, and most importantly, keep our residents and businesses safe. I did have a discussion with Representative Orwell earlier this week, because one challenge that we're having is, without any level of accountability, we're trying to convince people with mental health and addiction problems to voluntarily go into treatment. Well, when we've lost the ability of accountability, such as drug courts, which were extremely effective, I'm not saying everybody needs to go to jail, but when there's no incentive or no hammer over somebody to get that treatment, and it's left up solely to their voluntary willingness to go into treatment, it's making it nearly impossible to get people to do that. So I'm in active conversations with Representative Orwell and others in the legislature to try to come up with some ideas and strategies to ensure that we can improve the quality of life and address the disorder, not only along Pacific Highway South, but throughout our community. So that's kind of an update on what's going on.
Chief, thank you very much. And I think we all appreciate that you have to speak in measured tones about what's going on. And we appreciate that. But I hope that everyone walks away with the understanding that the 50 people and from the multiple agencies at multiple levels came to Des Moines. And that's a result of the chief and his partnerships and relationships and his determination to address this in any way that we can with any help we can get. So thank you, Chief and Mayor. That concludes the city manager's report.
Thank you. Will the clerk please read the consent calendar?
Item 1, approval of vouchers. Item 2, approval of minutes. Item 3, Commerce Housing Action Plan Implementation Grant Acceptance. Item 4, 2021 City Manager Performance Review. Item 5, Compensation for Non-Representative Employees 2022. Item 6, Change Order Number 1 with Pacific Environment for emergency repairs to the gas and diesel fuel lines as a part of the Des Moines Marina Fueling System Upgrade Project. And that concludes the consent calendar, Mayor.
Thank you. I see a hand from Councilmember Buxton.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to pull item number 4 from the consent calendar.
Okay, one second. I will note that, but I'd like to get a motion to get the consent agenda out there. Do we have a motion to approve the consent, the consent calendar? I see Louisa Banks.
Oh, go ahead.
That's what, go ahead, Tracy. I'll second it.
Okay,
So
so I-
moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Buxton, seconded by Councilmember Bangs. Now I will go back to Councilmember Buxton. You raised your hand and you wanted to pull item 4, correct?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay, are there any other council members? Okay, I see Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 6.
Okay. All right, seeing no other hands, we will vote on items 1, 2, 3, and 5. All those in favor of those items, please raise your hand until I call your name. Okay, I see Councilmember Bangs, Councilmember Harris, Councilmember Martinelli, Councilmember Buxton, Councilmember Nutting, Deputy Mayor Mahoney, and myself. Okay, so those items passed 7-0. And now I will go to Councilmember Buxton over item 4.
Thank you, Mayor. So I wanted to make an extended comment on this item before we address it. So I wanted to say retaining Michael and for this compensation is an incredibly good business decision on many levels. So our city is a member of a King County organization called Sound Cities Association, which is every city in King County is a member of this organization except Seattle. So it's 1 million people, one voice. It's designed to have a greater voice in regional politics. So I spoke with the director. So she is aware of what goes on in every single city in the county. And I was mentioning this situation here. And she said, Deanna Dawson, she said, this raise that we are considering with the step increase is right in there for King County city managers. So the anecdotal story she was telling me was about Bothell, the city of Bothell, since mid-February 2021, so about 10 months, they've been without a city manager. And they have been searching nationally for a replacement. This position that they advertised tops out at $237. So as of last week, there were 3 candidates for this position, and it turned out in their city council meeting, none of them worked out. So now Bothell, and none of those candidates that ended up in that position had city manager experience. So now Bothell, after 10 months, is back to square one, even with a pay range that is pretty significant. So in addition to that, there were 2 city managers hired in King County cities in the last month. Snoqualmie just hired a city manager at $237. And then Normandy Park just hired one, a lot smaller city, but $135. As of January, King County, as of a few weeks from now, January, King County will have at least 3 cities looking for a city manager: Bothell, Medina, and Burien. So these cities are going to be looking at the same national talent pool while competing for a chief municipal administrator. So when we're talking about especially Snoqualmie and Bothell and their pay ranges that they've got, we're right in there. And according, Deanna said, if you've got a good city manager right now, it is hard to find one. And if you like them, you do anything you can to keep him. So that's my input. Thank you.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Mahoney.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Tracy, for that information. I'd like to make a few comments too, because I saw definitely some untruths, misfacts, fake news, whatever you want to call on social media about Michael and Michael's position. First of all, I want to remind everybody that the last 18, 19 months, we've been navigating through one of the toughest times ever in any municipal history. Each city's facing the challenges of COVID. And you just heard the chief talk about crime and that being part of it, where they can't incarcerate criminals, so they're putting them back on the street. Michael, when you get somebody with a tenure like Michael has had for the last several years, you also are paying for relationships. Michael has strong relationships with many other entities as far as governmental, investors, developers, and several people in the community. And that's invaluable. That takes a long time to build a relationship, and it's worth something that you can't put a price on. Michael also has a premium staff. The staff is dedicated to this city, and I see them on countless hours working to achieve the objectives we have to make this city a better place to live. I want to remind everybody that Michael opted not to take his increase last year in lieu of COVID. He thought it was the right thing to do. A couple of other things, a lot of times the staff, through Michael's leadership, finds money. A couple examples, just in this last year, they found $2 million for Midway Park expansion, no matching grants. They got the 2 mil, just shy of it or whatever. $2 million for the North Bulkhead, and that's working with his relationship with Anthony Hempstead, and nearly $1 million for Redondo. That's $5 million right there. And I'm not picking up the change on a bunch of other grants, but $5 million more than pays for a staff a few times over. So you got to need to remember those types of things. The other major achievement this year is the Marina Development has moved forward. After years and years of struggles, we are finally in a position to take the city to the place it's always wanted to be, that everybody calls out. We have some great opportunities as we lead into the next couple of years, where light rail construction and Pack Highway and some of the other agendas that we have along with the Marina Development are going to be huge. We need a leader and his staff in place to make sure that gets done. Change is bad in this case for us. In addition, a lot of people forget, we've been, as the chief just talked about, we've been actively trying to combat crime, especially later. The chief won't take credit for it, but he was a leader, instrumental with it, with the leadership of Michael, knowing that he could get the job done. And he's led this plan amongst the community. Everybody else, technically, in my opinion, is following along. Teddy Roosevelt said one thing. Yep, when asked about management style, he said this. He said, hire good people and let them do their jobs. And that's kind of the mindset we have. Michael has the same with his team. And what we've been is successful. And thank you, Michael. I think you've done an excellent job, and you're worthy of this increase.
Yep.
So, see, Councilmember Martinelli.
Thank you, Mayor. So my question would be, 2 years ago when we voted for the city manager's raise in 2020, we did it in January when the new council was seated. And I don't understand why we are not doing that now. We have 2 new council members taking their seats next month. And it seems like we're rushing this artificially prior to 2 members leaving. And so I would request that we delay this to January, as has been done in the past. And I would also request that, given the city manager is already making nearly $250,000, which is more than the city manager in CTAC and Burien was making, I would request that money instead go into our human services budget. Maybe it could actually help some nonprofit organizations, help the citizens of the city. I'm not commenting right now whether or not I think the city manager has done a good job, but $250,000 is plenty, and I don't think that it needs to be more. And I think Councilmember Buxton's comments would only be relevant if the city manager was essentially telling us that he would leave if we did not give him this raise. I have not gotten that impression. Maybe that is the case, and we can have a discussion about that. But if the city manager is not going to leave the city if he does not get this raise, then it should go to the citizens of the city, the nonprofit organizations that help the citizens, not to somebody who's already making $250,000. But even that put aside, we should wait until the new council is put in place, as we have in the past. Thank you.
Councilmember Bangs.
Thank you, Mayor. I find it very interesting that we have an issue with what we're working to accomplish with our city manager based on pay. We don't have an issue with all the work he does. We don't have an issue with comparing him to other cities, which we shouldn't at this point, even though I do take into account everything Councilmember Buxton said. And coming from a company that values employees and values those who lead employees, you pay them. You pay them for what it is you've asked them to do, and then they go above and beyond it. I also find it very interesting, Councilmember Martinelli, that you didn't even provide any comments to the city manager's review, none whatsoever, didn't even show up. So I take what you say as nothing, because you always have an opportunity to say something that seems to reflect that we're not doing the right thing. And I personally, as a city council member over the last 7 years, have had no issue with any council members except what's going on now related to what this city's been doing. So, you know, regardless of your reason for not providing input, I just find it very odd that you would even comment and then suggest we delay it, because I, for one, will vote for it.
Councilmember Martinelli, this is your second attempt, and then Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. Frankly, Councilmember Bangs, I don't think many people really care what you find to be odd or not. Again, this comes down to the fact that the city manager is making $250,000. We do not need to give someone who's making $250,000 a larger salary when he is making more than the entire human services budget of our city. We have a city of over $30,000, and he is making more than our entire human services budget. The money should go into that. It should not go into the pocket of somebody who, even if he's doing a great job, is making $250,000 a year. I think that that's absurd, and I think it's offensive that we are doing it now and rushing it, just like we rushed the, many other things, just like we rushed the council rule changes a couple of years ago. We are rushing something before the new council comes into place because it's likely that the new council would not vote for this raise. And so we're pushing it in a way that is not appropriate. And that's all the comments I have. I think that the public agrees with me on this and understands that someone who's making $250,000 should not be making more when it is already more than our entire human services budget.
Okay, before I go back to go forward, I want to remind the public factually that when the two new council members, Martinelli and Harris, came on board, we did have a process where the city manager's review was to be done in January, and they did. Although Councilmember Harris did provide input, it was at that time that Councilmember Martinelli did not provide any input either. He said, I have no input to provide. So it was requested that we move his review to December, and the process of a review does come with salary increase. So it was moved at that time per these council member requests. And I think it is essential that the facts be correct. I also think that it is essential that Councilmember Bangs did state factually that Councilmember Martinelli has never provided into the city manager's review. And I find it interesting that he is upset, but I will also point out that the amount of money that you are talking apples and oranges, you are looking at the CEO of over $100 million organization. He's passed on an increase last year, and because of the work that he and his team have done, the city has not collected the additional 1% property tax for 2 years. You can say what you will, but your facts are highly skewed and they don't tie to anything. You are notorious for throwing dollar amounts out there and misleading the public. Anyway, that's enough on that. I will go to Councilmember Harris and then Councilmember Banks.
Thank you, Mayor. I will not be voting for this on the merits. Salary is largely irrelevant to me. The council does not have the information it needs to provide a rational evaluation of where we're at and how well we could or should be doing. The pay is at the high end of the range, but again, there's almost a fetish about the dollar amount, as if we're talking about a commodity like potatoes. So, you know, the value of that the person brings to the position should be the critical discussion. And we can't have a fair discussion about that. And I feel like the city should be doing better. And I have been blocked over 100 times from making reasonable inquiries. And I hope that that changes. And in closing, man, these personal attacks, you know, I think I got a pretty thick skin, but I won't miss that. And I sure hope it changes. The idea of just like addressing one another, it's like, man, that's gotta go. Okay, let's talk about merits. And happy to do that. And thank you for your service and all that. And that's all I got.
Councilmember Bangs.
Mayor, you pretty much said exactly what I would have said. However, I will say this. Neither one of you represent the 31,000 people that are here. You're constantly talking about most of or a majority of. I doubt very seriously that a majority of them are reaching out to you to tell you whatever it is you think they're telling you. But I will say this, I'm sure things will change. I'm sure that eventually something will happen to make sure it does change. But as I said before, you want to talk about merit? Absolutely. It's merited that he gets this raise. Thank you, Mayor.
I don't see any other hands. I have a final remark in response to the city doing better. When I became mayor 6 years ago, our general fund was $16 million. And we were on the brink of bankruptcy, and we were definitely on the brink of insolvency. We brought in Michael, and we changed a number of things. We just passed a budget with a general fund of around $29 million. You want to talk merit? I think that's one thing. Deputy Mayor Mahoney, your comments about the increase of $5 million in funds to address various projects in the city and bringing in the talent to allow this to happen, that's merit. I don't know what else you want to say, but with that, I am going to make the motion to approve a single step increase for the city manager for his exemplary performance during the year 2021. All those in favor, please, do I have a second? I have a second from Councilmember Bangs. All those in favor, please raise your hand until I call your name. Councilmember Bangs, Councilmember Buxton, Councilmember Nutting, Deputy Mayor Mahoney, and myself. Opposed? Councilmembers Harris and Martinelli. Passes 5-2. We are on to item 6, which is the change order number 1 with Pacific Environmental for emergency repairs to the gas and diesel fuel lines as part of the Des Moines Marina Fueling System Upgrades Project. Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. This will be real quick. Scott, is this a proprietary piece of hardware? I'm sorry, you knew I was going to ask that.
Thank you, Councilmember Harris. Yeah, this is kind of a specific hose that's the large expense, that $13,000 that you saw for 130 feet of hose. It's a hose that has the flexibility for our -4 tides to our +12 tides going down the ramp. It also can make these tight bends that we have to go through the cable schlep down at the bottom of the ramp. And unfortunately, the hose that was used previous, it it wasn't this type of hose, it wasn't sufficient, and we have some damage, and we didn't know about this. It was an unforeseen damage until we took that outer jacket off that was damaged and that was needed to be replaced by the Department of Ecology's, I asked on that because it was getting saltwater intrusion.
No. I'm like, I mean, it still sounds like it's under budget and everything. My only thing is I keep coming back to, is this like one of those single vendor things where 12 years from now, we better hope that they're still in business, kind of a deal?
Oh, no, sir. This is the piping itself. As for the vendor doing the install, I mean, the piping itself is from that vendor. And yes, this hose is what they use on other over water facilities. And so that's why we have it here. Hopefully it's never going to break again or have a problem with. As for the cost for the company installing, since they're on site, I feel we're getting a better price since they're here doing the other work anyway.
Okay, one last thing, which will
Yes,
sound
sir.
like, is there anything else that could break?
No,
I
sir.
know that sounds like,
No,
it just
no,
seems
this-
like this
this-
has been fraught.
I appreciate that. No, this replaces now from the sidewalk to the brand new pumps that are being installed at this point. Everything from point to point will be new.
Thank you for the indulgence.
Thank you.
Any further comment? Okay, the motion is to approve the change order number 1 to the agreement between the city and Pacific Environmental Services Company, increasing the authorized expenditure for the project by $26,176.28, including Washington State sales tax, and to authorize the city manager to sign the change order substantially in the form as submitted. I will make that motion. Do I have a second? I think I have 5 seconds. So I will say I saw hands from Councilmember Banks, Harris, Nutting, Buxton, and Deputy Mayor Mahoney. So with that, all those in favor, please raise your hand until I call your name. Councilmember Martinelli, Councilmember Harris, Councilmember Bangs, Councilmember Buxton, Councilmember Nutting, Deputy Mayor Mahoney, and myself. This passes 7-0. Okay. This takes us forward to our new business updates to the Harbor Code, Des Moines Municipal Code, DMMC, Chapter 15.04, staff presentation by City Manager Michael Mathias.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to say a few words and then turn this over to Dan to walk through a PowerPoint with us.
Okay.
We are all aware that for many years, the culture for the city was difficult to treat the marina like the enterprise fund and business that it is. And the enterprise fund means that the marina is responsible for generating revenues that are equal to expenditures. That's the basic model. And unfortunately, in the past, it was not always run as a business. I want to remind the council that when early in my administration here, we decided to carve out what we call the waterland zone on the uplands. And by doing that, recently, the $12 million for the bulkhead renovation has been paid for by the city and not by the marina. So we are absolutely committed to the health and well-being of the marina, as is the council. We've had many discussions about what we're doing. We have tried to work very closely with the Des Moines Marina Association and their leadership in plans that we had. We took their recommendations relative to doing some strategic planning where we hired the consultant they recommended. And then we got several reports from that consultant. And we've looked at ways to support the business model. And we feel that staff, and you'll see in this presentation, many city rates and fees are set by the city manager and or his or her designee. And the council has the ability to revoke any rate changes, take control of any rate setting that they want at any time. And so, the question, and Dan will talk about this, has that been a successful process? And I think what we feel, and I want to say this as delicately as I can, so forgive me if I don't, but we feel we can focus on the efficiencies of running the marina as a business. We think that if rate setting goes or remains in the hands of the council, it's difficult for the city council to have a pure focus on the business piece of it, when in fact there are multiple interests who could either benefit or not benefit from whatever rate policy was in place. And I'll just tell you, one of our, a prominent citizen in Des Moines shared with me their feeling that if we let the, to have the ratepayers objecting to the process was similar to an apartment owner who went to all the tenants in the building and said, is it okay with you if we raise the rates, the rents? And of course, the answer would be no. So we want to take all that into account, but we feel that this is the right course. And of course, we're willing to accept any judgment of the council as to how to proceed with this. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dan to kind of walk through our PowerPoint.
Thank you, Michael. Bonnie, if you could turn to the next slide. Michael covered a lot of the presentation right there. So
sorry,
some of this will probably be just recapping this a little bit, but our focus of this draft ordinance is to, again, assure that the marina is operated as a business. We all know the marina is an enterprise fund. The hallmark of an enterprise fund is that the expenditures must match revenues, and revenues must be in context with all of the true costs for the marina. And at the same time, rates should be set to be competitive and consistent with market demand. As we move forward with marina redevelopment, effective integration of the water side of the marina as a business enterprise is critical. And as Michael mentioned, the council still will be in a position of taking responsibility to establish rates anytime they choose to do so. Next slide, please. As Michael mentioned, the city manager and administration currently set rates and fees and charges for almost all activities in the city. We've listed a few here. All of our community development fees, our business licenses, permitting and building fees, parking rates. We set rates for fuel, both at the Public Works Service Center and at the marina. A variety of services, all of our event and facility rentals, park rec, senior services, et cetera, et cetera. So the city manager and administration already set fees across the spectrum of city operations. Next slide. So as we prepared this draft ordinance, we've kind of broken this down into two slides here. The primary focus here, obviously, is adjusting how marina rates are set. So I want to cover this first. Currently, there are a number of the ways that we adjust rates at the marina. The first is we do an annual inflationary adjustment, and that's based on the August Consumer Price Index. And again, this is to adjust rates up or down based on what's happening to the value of the dollar in the Puget Sound region. So administration will continue to do this on an annual basis, just as we've already been doing. The second rate adjustment thing that we do currently is periodic rate studies. We'll hire a financial consultant to evaluate what marinas are charging across the Puget Sound, our competitors, essentially. And as the marina is an enterprise fund, rate study serves as a basis for validating rates that we're charging. And so we will continue to do this. We will continue to periodically do a rate study to confirm that the rates that we're charging are valid for our true operation, maintenance, service, and capital costs, and that we're within a competitive edge of the market. What's new is that we want to be able to adjust rates periodically to make sure that we're competitive with the market. The idea here is it's basic economics 101s, law of supply and demand, where you want to set your rates where the curve, the supply curve and the demand curve meet. We want to optimize marina occupancy. That means the amount of time that a slip is, that all of our slips are leased throughout the year. We want to maximize that to the extent possible, while at the same time optimizing our revenue. If one of those is out of whack, you will see it show up in the other. So if our rates are too high, our occupancy is going to be, our overall occupancy rate will not be high. We want to have an occupancy rate in the mid 90 percentile. If you have an occupancy rate of 100% with 6-year waiting lists, that's a pretty good indication that your rates are too low. Next slide. There's a few other changes in this ordinance. As we were going through the rate piece, we noticed a few other things that needed to be brought up to date. So there's some definitions for key holder and what that means for dock access. We've designated that the Public Works Director is the one who should set speed and parking regulations. And then we updated some language for modern technology and mobility devices as well. Next slide, please. Over the last couple of days, we've gotten some comments and concerns from folks. And so in response to that, we wanted to at least put out here, there's a potential amendment that the council could consider for this ordinance. And if you, I'll just read it. You would move to amend section 4 of section 1 of the draft ordinance. It would add the following language: the city manager shall provide written notice to the city council on any mortgage rate adjustments no less than 30 days prior to the effective date of the adjustment. In other words, we want to be transparent. We've been transparent, and this just solidifies in the code that the council is going to be informed of any rate adjustments that we're doing at the marina. So this is a potential amendment that you could consider with this ordinance. Next slide, please. So tonight you have some options. You can adopt the ordinance as proposed in the packet. If you wanted to do that, you'd pass motions 1 and 2. If you want to amend the ordinance, you'd pass motions 1 and 2A and 2B. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay. See, I see J.C. Harris. I see Martinelli, Councilmember Martinelli. Is there anyone else? I see Deputy Mayor Mahoney. Okay, and those are the hands I see at this time. So we don't have a motion on the table. So in terms of addressing comments, we need to get the motions on the table before we get into discussion. So I will go in the order that I said. I recognize people, but do I have someone who wants to make the motion at this time? And we'll have to put it back up on the screen. I see, Councilmember Nutting? Okay.
Suspend the rule.
This first motion is to
Yeah, I've got it. I move to suspend Rule 26A in order to enact draft ordinance number 21-055 on the first reading.
Second.
Okay, so I have first motion 26, Councilmember Nutting, seconded by Councilmember Bangs. Councilmember Harris?
Yeah, to this, to suspending Rule 26A, if ever there was a time to not do that, this is it. I think that, this sort of caught people by surprise, boat owners, and we should give them a second meeting to, before doing anything.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of suspending 26A in order to.
Point of order, Mayor. I had my hand up for comment after Councilmember Harris.
That's your hand. Neither did anybody else watching. What is your comment?
They did. Actually, you literally said Councilmember Harris and then me. You can go back and watch the meeting. That's a silly thing to say.
Actually,
that being said,
you're being argumentative. I am talking about the motion, and I said I recognize Councilmember Harris, Martinelli, and Mahoney with regard to the motion. This is an action to suspend a rule. Technically, we don't even have to take comment on it. Isn't that correct, City Attorney George?
You're really not going to let you comment after letting JC comment?
I mean,
sorry, I was hearing something else.
I'm saying the action on 26A.
I mean, it could be debated unless the council wanted to call the question, and then that could, if there was a majority that wanted to move it forward. But I don't think we have that at this point.
So my comment is, Councilmember Martinelli, if you want to speak with regard to Rule 26A suspension, I will go. I'm saying yes.
thank you, Mayor. So I couldn't agree with Councilmember Harris more. This is another situation where we should absolutely wait until the new council comes in. We're kind of pushing this through, and it's particularly egregious since we're trying to suspend the rules to do it. We're suspending the rules to prevent a second hearing when that second hearing would take place under a new council and would give the public who were kind of blindsided by this a true opportunity to look it over and give their opinions. I oppose suspending the rules under any circumstance, but as Councilmember Harris said, if there was ever a reason or ever a situation where we should not do that, now would be the case. And so I very much oppose suspending the rules, and I think we should push this off to a new council.
Okay. Well, at this point, we have motion on the table. All those in favor, please raise. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I see Councilmember Buxton's hand?
I think I'd like to make a comment about that. And one of the reasons that I'm not as concerned about getting, I mean, it's a little bit fudgy here, but about getting extended public comment on this is that for the same, most of the comment that I can imagine, you know, that the people who are blindsided by this or people who would be concerned, as the city manager did mention briefly, are going to be ratepayers. And so if I do receive a lot of correspondence and, you know, I wouldn't be able to weigh correspondence from people who were not Des Moines citizens or were not Des Moines residents. They might be a ratepayer, they might have a boat down at the marina, but they're not a Des Moines resident. I have to be responsible for Des Moines residents. Secondly, if they are a ratepayer, and this has to do with rates, it's a pretty significant conflict of interest there to weigh that. The input that I need to be careful to weigh would have to be reflective of the majority of the citizens of the city. So if I want to even think about that just as a representative coming to the table, thinking about what I know about how my citizens feel about the marina and the, you know, the resource and the flow of the resource down there, I would say that the majority of citizens, there's been some pretty clear communication about bending to the will of a lot of the more upper middle class citizens, and being amenable to that, the people who have boats down there when we're talking about how we're going to enhance the marina. So especially if the city's going to participate in anything at all, meaning the taxpayer dollars are going to supplement anything down there, the people who are going to have feedback on that are going to be even more upset that the average citizen who doesn't have an investment down there is going to be asked to even pay more taxes if the rates are kept lower. So I think what I'm trying to say is the average citizen that doesn't have a boating interest in the marina is not going to appreciate that we're going to be soft on that. And frankly, or if we consider being soft on that, and I think this was not a good business decision in the first place, and we're fixing it here. And this should have never been something that the council was supposed to be responsible for, that we are policymakers responsible for policy. We're not here to oversee the business aspect of it. That's what our city manager does. And I don't know why it was put here in the first place, because like, as our chief operations officer said, none of the rest of the fee structures in the city are the council's not answerable for those. So when I weigh about whether I'm going to get most of the input that I think I'm going to get, I'm probably just going to have to discount for the reasons that I mentioned. So those are the reasons why I'm not concerned about suspending 26A. It was a long answer, but that's my input. Thank you.
Councilmember Harris.
Briefly to the motion on the table, I've got 3 letters today from 2 from Port Sider and 1 from South Shores. These are not boat owners. They are people who live along 6th Avenue. And, it's just a fact that it's tough to get people informed about events on the agenda, and whether they should be more engaged, it's just difficult. It takes time. So, this is not about a new council or politics or any of that jazz. It's just basically giving people, a little more time before we vote on it. Thank you.
All those in favor of the motion to suspend Rule 26A, please raise your hand until I call your name. Councilmember Bangs, Councilmember Nutting, Councilmember Buxton, Deputy Mayor Mahoney, and myself. Opposed? Councilmember Martinelli and Councilmember Harris. Passes 5-2. Councilmember Nutting.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have the rest of them. I do have the second motion. I move to adopt.
We just put the motion on the screen.
Yeah, I move to enact draft ordinance 21-055.
Okay. Do we have a second? Seconded by Deputy Mayor Mahoney. So we have the
point of order, Mayor. I didn't want to second that one. I wanted to know if I would be able to make a motion for the second one rather than that one.
You need to, well, we have to deal with things separately unless the maker of the motion, Councilmember Nutting, is willing to accept your amendment.
Yeah.
I accept Deputy Mayor Mahoney's amendment to
Okay,
move to
Deputy
2A.
Mayor Mahoney, go ahead and read the motion that you are talking to.
Can we put it back up, please?
Yeah, here you go.
I move to amend section 4, subsection 1 of the draft ordinance to add the following. The city manager shall provide written notice to the city council of any mortgage rate adjustment no less than 30 days prior to the effective date of that adjustment. And I move to enact draft ordinance 21-055 as amended.
Do I have a second?
second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Deputy Mayor Mahoney, seconded by Councilmember Nutting. Okay, and at this point, so this was the first. I got. Sorry, I have to. Something cropped up on my screen. Okay. What the heck is going on? One moment, please.
So,
Okay.
Mayor, real
Yes.
quick, I think, so we need to amend the ordinance first. So let's just stick with the first motion
Okay.
that Deputy Mayor Mahoney made, which is to amend the motion to include that language. If you get a vote on that,
Okay.
then you can make the second motion. And I think Councilmember Nutting was okay with that.
He's
but-
shaking his head yes. I'm sorry. I thought it was paired the way it was written. My mistake.
Yeah. So if we could just focus on the amendment at this time,
Can I
and
get
then the next question will be passing the
Can I
ordinance.
get it back on the screen real quick, just for clarity's sake? So the motion on the table is, which has been made by Deputy Mayor Mahoney and seconded by Councilmember Nutting, is move to amend section 4, subsection 1 of the draft ordinance to add the following: the city manager will provide written notice to the city council of any mortgage rate adjustment no less than 30 days prior to the effective date of the adjustment. Okay, so we have a motion and second on that. And if I can go back to the screen, thank you. And okay, so at this point, is there anyone that wishes to speak to the amendment? Deputy Mayor Mahoney.
Thank you, Mayor. I mean, I spoke with several people today myself, and the heart of this was the concern. Nobody seemed to be concerned about the rate adjustment. They knew that the math needed to change to something more comparable to today's calculations. We're doing something that we're looking at what's a better way. We have to look at the next 50 years when you think of it as a business, not the last 50. That only guides you. What you have to do is have to figure out a better way to be more responsive. And that's what this done. But the heart of the matter is whether the council has approval or not. Now, there is consistency in the rest of the rate setting done through the city manager's office, and that's true. But we also understand that boat owners, there is an emotional tie to that. And they are our customers, whether they live in this city or not. They are our customers, and we offer services. We have to make sure those amenities are up to standard and so forth. But to do that, we have to make sure we've got rates that support that. You can't have a lost leader and go broke and provide the services. That's the truth here. But what this does is, because I think there's a trust issue here, and I understand that trust issue, is this allows some time for everybody to understand what's happening, what the rates are, hear about it. If there needs to be concessions made for some reason, we have that ability to do so. And if this program doesn't work, then we take back that responsibility. But in this case, it's where it should be. As Councilmember Buxton had mentioned before, it really should have been with the city manager's office in the first place. And with that, this is a great concession to this effort. And it addresses the concerns, and we will all live and learn. In addition to that, in my discussions with the city manager, there will be entities that will be involved in the rate discussion too. So there will be a discussionary piece of this, a community of peace with people that are stakeholders in this regard. So it's going to be an all-inclusive thing, but it's new, it's a change, but it is business. And that's what the marina needs to be. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Harris.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say anything until the deputy mayor's last paragraph. Whenever I hear the word entities, basically any kind of like pronouns or a non-specific stuff when it comes to money, I get concerned. And so, yeah, that's the whole idea of who has a voice and when. The whole process should be out in the open. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Okay, we have motion on the table for the amendment. All those in favor, please raise your hand until I call your name. I see Councilmember Bangs, Councilmember Nutting, Councilmember Buxton, Deputy Mayor Mahoney, and myself opposed. See Councilmember Harrison Martinelli passes. The amendment motion passes 5-2. And that takes us to motion 2B. Deputy Mayor Mahoney.
I move to enact draft ordinance 21-055 as amended.
Second.
Okay, this motion made by Deputy Mayor Mahoney, seconded by Councilmember Nutting. Any discussion? Councilmember Harris. Councilmember Harris, before we go into discussion, as a point of order, I believe you've said you have a boat at the marina in the past.
Mhm.
And do you have this may be a conflict of interest?
Not currently, and at no point, in the foreseeable future.
What do you mean not currently and no point in the foreseeable future?
I have no intention of having a boat at the marina.
You don't have a boat, so you do not have a boat at the Des Moines Marina?
That is correct.
Okay,
But
thank you.
I don't know, I seem to recall that some of our colleagues also had moorage at some point. I don't know if it's a relevant question for me. Would it not be relevant?
It's only a relevant question if you actually have a boat at this time. If you don't, then it's moot.
Cool.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is what I wanted to say. Going back to the city manager's initial remarks, I actually agree 100% with what he said. He was far more charitable and courteous than I would have been about the situation back in the day. I guess, it is a business, and it definitely needs to respond and, be sustainable. But the thing is that this is not like any other business. I think it's fair to say that when the marina was built, it was meant to have a certain purpose for the community. The market has shifted. We are well aware that the majority of boat owners do not live in Des Moines, and that the world has, it's no longer guys like me, basically. It's, and we should set rates appropriately. However, I believe it was the intent in building and having a city marina that it be a resource for the community. So I can't vote for this. I would like to see the ordinance section 4 removed and a discussion happen next year that talks about basically a mission statement for the marina. I think it's fair to have a discussion that says we need to make rates competitive, but also have a set aside for at least some members of the community to maintain affordability. I don't pretend to have that kind of language. I don't think it's up to me to have that language. But I think it's a discussion that should happen, who the marina is for. And the entirety of this presentation has been about maximizing revenue as if it were any other business. And it's not any other business. It has a very special place in the community. So that's not, trying to be obstructionist. It's basically trying to find a balance for the members of the community who are not all going to have that big luxury covered moorage. And so there has to be a balance between the past and where we want to go in the future. So I would like to strike any revisions to section 4.
Are you making a motion to do that?
Yes, I would move to strike any revisions to section 4.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Harris and seconded by Councilmember Martinelli to strike any revisions to section 4. Discussion? Okay, all those in favor of striking any revisions to section 4, please raise your hand until I call your name. I see Councilmember Harris and Councilmember Martinelli. All opposed? Please raise your hand until I call your name. Councilmember Banks, Councilmember Buxton, Councilmember Nutting, Deputy Mayor Mahoney, and myself. It fails 2-5. Okay. This is your second time, Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a quick question. Is the reason for Public Works taking over traffic, is that simply to be consistent with the rest of the municipal code, or is there some, efficiency that's gained?
First, I'm trying to understand what the question has to do with the current motion on the table.
Well,
Dan Brewer will address it. That's fine.
Yeah, thanks, Councilmember Harris. The code amendment that we're proposing is to, the Public Works Director is the person, at least in our city, who has the training and background for setting speed limits and things like that. The police chief is the person responsible for enforcing that. And so it's just bringing this language that was adopted in, I think, 1979 up to kind of current, matching our current, the rest of the code where our engineering staff sets speed limits and parking regulations, and then our police department enforces those regulations.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Seeing no more discussion, all those in favor of the motion to pass? I don't have it right in front of me. Draft ordinance 21055. No, as amended. Please raise your hand until I call your name. This is all in favor. I see myself, Deputy Mayor Mahoney, Councilmember Nutting, Councilmember Buxton, Councilmember Banks. All those opposed? See Councilmember Harris and Councilmember Martinelli. This passes 5-2. Okay. Council, there will not be an introduction of new business items tonight for future consideration because it is more appropriate for the discussion that's necessary and the disposition that's necessary for the new council to move that to January because they're brand new ideas. I will say that before we go into board and committee reports, I'd like to acknowledge an outgoing council member. We have Councilmember Louisa Banks, who has served admirably. She has a wonderful business acumen. She understands leadership and how there are difficult decisions to be made, and you just have to make them. They're not always easy. They're not always popular, but they are. When doing the right thing, she recognizes you do it because it's the right thing to do. You have served this community wonderfully and represented yourself and this council admirably. I very much appreciate the work that you have done, and our city is very grateful. I have here for you an outgoing award. I can hold it up a little bit. And it says, in recognition of outstanding service to the citizens of Des Moines, Washington on the Des Moines City Council in your years of service. So again, the city clerk will accept this on your behalf and see that we can get this to you as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mayor.
At this point, I'm going to go into board and committee reports and council member comments, and Councilmember Banks will allow you to make any comments back into that. And we will start tonight with Councilmember Buxton.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. I may have to exit the meeting early, so I appreciate the opportunity to offer comments early. So I wanted to open with a farewell to our mayor. This is his last meeting after 2 decades of public service. So Matt, I just want to say to you, it has been an incredible experience working with you and learning from you. From the first time we met, when you advised me at the beginning of my campaign to invest in a really good pair of walking shoes, right? To the present day, I have appreciated hearing from you and watching how you lead and make decisions. Thank you for your sacrifice for our community in a myriad of ways over the years. It would take a book to list them. So I wish you all the best in friends and family and success moving forward and in the years to come. And I believe you are still very young and have a lot of energy. So I am sure you're going to have a lot of things to succeed in as you move forward. So thank you so much, Matt. And to Louisa, so this is her last meeting as well. Louisa, I want to say thank you so much for your strong and wise leadership, but also for your friendship. You've been a wise voice for me moving through some difficult decisions and difficult times. Thank you for your compassion, for your time, for your strength, and for your heart. It's been a pleasure and a privilege to serve with you, and I hope for all the best as you move into this next phase of your life. I think you have some amazing and exciting things ahead of you. So thank you so much for being my friend and colleague. And to community, happy holidays. And I'm hoping that your hearts and your homes are full of the love of friends and family, not only in the next few days, but in all the days to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember Buxton. The next person is Councilmember Martinelli.
Thank you, Mayor. The last couple of years have been interesting. I think that I have not really seen a city government function in a way that is as immature as this one has. So I hope that that can improve going into the next council. And I want to say that regardless of the vast differences I had with Mayor Pena and Councilmember Bangs, you sacrificed your time and your energy to do what you thought was best for the city, and that is admirable. And I appreciate that, and I think a lot of people do as well. And those are all the comments I have, other than to say happy holidays to everyone.
Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. So because I live, close by, I think the first council meeting I attended was having to do with the removal of the sling launch and Mayor Pena's father. When Mayor Pena became, a member of the council, man, I don't think the public understands how rough that must have been for years and years. You'd have this situation, it was surreal to me. Everyone would be so nice and calm and well-dressed and polite, and then talk about losing $1.5 million and then onto holiday gift baskets. And I can't imagine what it must have been like year after year. And I salute you, Mayor, for this is a long game and it's tough. And so once one has the chance to make change, you were able to do some things that were very necessary. And the public should appreciate the chaos years ago. I really, people should, and this is for the new council, I would recommend strongly that people who are new to the council go back and watch those older meetings. There were 2 questions that the candidates or the applicants were asked during the appointment for which Councilmember Nutting was successful. And it was, how well will you be able to get along? And also something about property rights seemed to be very important. It was just, we have to get along better. You could just feel it in that selection process. So thank you very much for hanging in there and for basically, finally getting some things done that needed to be done. I'm not at all happy with how things are now, but I acknowledge that people will not understand. There are just only a few dozen people in this town who just stick it out and really, show their commitment over a long period of time. And thank you. And I hope that the new council goes back and does look at some of those meetings from a decade ago to get a sense, because, I'm not happy with things how they are now, but they could also go another way. And that's a cautionary tale. Thank you for your service, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Nutting.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank you for your leadership and your friendship over the last 8 years. It's been great to be a part of this council. Councilmember Banks, thank you for your service as well. I don't know how I ever would have met you two had I not gone out for the appointment and then be re-elected several times over. So I appreciate your guys' service and thank you. And I hope you get to enjoy your retirement from public service or maybe next adventures, who knows, right? But thank you so very much for being colleagues and friends as well. Thank you so much. And I hope you enjoy yourself and happy holidays, everybody. I hope everybody gets a chance to enjoy what family they have. And please be safe on the roads. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Nutting. Deputy Mayor Mahoney.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I want to wish the residents of Des Moines happy holidays. Mine is Merry Christmas, and I know you have yours. I hope you enjoy your time with your families. Louisa, I love you, man. You are one of the finest people I've ever met. Thank you for kicking my ass on occasion and straightening me out. Thank you for educating me on perspectives I can't possibly understand unless somebody takes the time to tell me. It's made me a better individual and a legislator in this community. I've really enjoyed our work together on various committees and so forth, our conversations of, too many to count, where we've discussed issues, we've talked about ways to make this city better. What I saw, though, was somebody who had a true heart for this community. And it's been an example that, quite honestly, I only hope to reach halfway to. And then I've done great things because that's what you've done for this community. You're one of the coolest people, like I said, I've ever met. And that's the thing, I really enjoy it. Our friendship is genuine and we have things in common. I want you to know, as I move forward to the next 4 years, I have your phone on speed dial and I always will be seeking your advice. So if you don't answer your phone, I might come over and knock on your door. So anyway, but all I can say is you are one of the finest examples of a human being this planet has ever seen. This community should be grateful for you, as I am. And I wish you the best in grandparentdom. Hopefully you get a few more in this time. And I'll get emotional if I go any further. So I'm going to move on to our mayor. Matt, you've been a mentor to me. And I know you've been on the council 12 years. And a lot of people may not even know you were 8 years on the school board. 20 years of commitment to this community, as your father was to the community and as your family. One of the things I know about you is you had this city like you protected it like it was yours. And it was. And we needed that. We needed that voice of Des Moines. And I have learned so much about that. And it's instilled a spirit in me that is going to carry forward. And in fact, not only in me, but I believe in all of our council members as we move forward to the next, term. But your sacrifice, and I know you couldn't take the trips places, you had to stay here on weekends. And some people will say the mayoral position is ceremonial, but the weekends and the long calls and the answering to this and that, when incidents happen and so forth, and being involved, it's a 24/7 call, just like the city manager's position is. And you've fulfilled that. When the tough conversations have to happen, you've had them. And it's not pleasant, and all of us on council know that. But you've been a leader, you've moved these meetings forward. You've been effective in that. And I just want you to know you're a tremendous example. The fact that you're a bass player in a rock and roll band only adds to your legend. I just want you to know. Now, finally, I hope you get some well-deserved rest and no more sleepless nights caring about the city as much as you had. I know you will always have that passion for it, but I hope you get some travel in too. And that you and Michelle, who, and I gotta, and forgive me, Louisa, because I'm going to add Randy to that, because Randy and Michelle, your better halves, have also been part of this. It's a team. You serve the community together. All the things you've been involved with together. And Michelle deserves as much, accolades as in your case, and of course, Randy and Louisa's. But that's what's important here is it's been a team effort. She's behind the scenes supported you. She's also volunteered in the community. And the truth is both of you are entering the next chapter of your life. But from our perspective, is we've been blessed to have you as a leader, particularly in the council for the last 12 years and 6 as the mayor. And I just, from my heart, want to say thank you on behalf of the community, and personally, thank you. And I really have learned so much from you being one of my mentors. And you always have permission to speak into my life too, just as Louisa does. And I have your phone on speed dial as well. With that, I need to turn over to Bonnie for a special presentation.
Me, I thought you were doing all the talking.
Oh, well, I'll do the talking. You put up. So obviously, in honor of your 12 years on city council, this plaque has been prepared in your honor. And since you're within a stone's throw of each other, at least, you'll be able to take this home tonight and not have to have somebody else accept it on your behalf. But we just want to, from the city, we say thank you.
I can. That's beautiful.
Thank you,
And
Mayor.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that was a photograph by former Councilmember Carmen Scott, another person that gave of herself many, many years for the city. So I am truly touched. Thank you very much. Let's see. Am I muted? No. Okay, this takes us forward to Councilmember Bangs.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, my last committee report, I met with the Arts Commission, and even though it's not a full commission, they had a lively discussion. It's a great group. We did a call for artists for the utility boxes, and we got some really good jury artwork that will be juried, and I will stay on for that. since, I went through it with them. There was a motion to recommend Sean Bagley, who's new, and I believe hopefully you'll be approving him, or whoever the next person is will be approving him for that Arts Commission. They're really, since we didn't really have a full commission at the time, they're, basically just talking about the future of the city and how the arts, are very important in getting really a lot more businesses involved in terms of just displaying art. Maybe we do some more murals around the city. So that's going to be one of the goals for 2022. We have a beautiful one out down there now. I think it's 22nd. I can't remember, but it's at the end of the Dollar Tree area there. So I will say that I will miss Ashley and Katie. They've been awesome. The commission's been great. I will stay in touch with them whenever they need me. My focus is going to be just a little bit different, but my heart will always be with the Arts Commission, and maybe, when I take a break, I may go back. We'll see. That's the end of my committee reports, but I do have some comments that I wrote out. And I would like to say that, it's been quite a journey these last 7 years. There's been a lot of ups and downs and starts and stops, but, we accomplished the goals we set out to accomplish. And we worked through the issues that were big and small. And I think now we see a really bright future for our city. I prefer to leave this journey on a high note, but unfortunately, I have to express my thoughts about what I believe we need to focus on. And, I've heard a lot of these snide comments. I know the thoughts are we've made snide comments, but I don't think so. That's just me. But I would say the we, in terms of the focus, is our council, our staff, the businesses, and the citizens. It's not just the small we, the microcosm. It's the macro. I think we need to focus on forward motion, allowing our city manager and staff to complete what we have waited years to have happen, years. We need to focus on building blocks that we set in place so we can continue to accomplish what the city deserves. It's a place that is a destination for us locally and for those who deliberately plan to come here. That's been our goal. We must focus on leaving pettiness behind. I don't disagree with that. I do agree. It's hard sometimes, in essence, if that's the case, we need to vote those who continue to justify the pettiness, vote them out at the expense of success. I mean, we don't need that. And then who continue in their deliberateness to obfuscate and push untruths. These are things that we don't need. And we read those every day. I see Deputy Mayor Mahoney constantly trying to make right what has been said. And that's unfortunate. We must see both sides of an issue. That's everyone. Okay, weigh the facts and move forward with those facts. We must trust our staff, for God knows they're exceptional and they work hard for this city. I've enjoyed my time on council. I learned a lot, and I learned a lot based on facts. And I know based on facts, we've ushered in many noteworthy projects. I leave you with the hope for the coming years, the ability to keep your heads above the fray. This is those who are there now and those who are coming on, and the patience to work through the obstacles and the challenges. Always remember that we, the council, represent 31,000+ citizens, not the special interest or small groups. And that unfortunately has taken and risen somewhat above the 30,000. That will be a challenge, and I know that the majority of you will succeed and continue the good work and the good fight. I give all my best to everyone and wish our city continued success. Of course, you're going to see me on Zoom, that's for sure, and hopefully soon in the council chambers. I will say to the chief, where are you, chief? I got to see his pretty face. Did he go? At any rate, I'll still be on police department committees that I'm currently on, so I'll see you soon. And I wish our citizens, I wish the council, city and city staff, very happy holidays. And let's pray that we have a better new year, not only for our city, but for this country, because God knows we need to have it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Bangs. I do have presiding officer's report. I appreciate your indulgence. As this is my final presiding officer's report and the last time I will address you as your mayor and council member. Considering this, it only seems appropriate to start by saying thank you. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve you over the past 20 years, first as the Highline School Board member and president, and then on this council. Over the past 12 years on council, there have been enormous wins and a few challenges. The most significant challenge of note is the COVID-19 pandemic. It changed the way we live, work, interact with each other, and function daily. I believe the city has managed this pandemic well. We have comparatively had minimal outbreaks and loss of life. We weren't and aren't perfect, as we are learning daily alongside our sister agencies. But I am grateful for the emergency management program that was put in place 4 years ago, because it's proven to be quite successful. I'm also proud of the way the team found the opportunities to keep us moving forward. It's a bit more slowly, but the forward momentum continues. One thing I personally have missed is being able to meet with people, hold state of the city presentations, and answer community questions. Zoom just doesn't cut it for me, I'll be honest. But pandemic aside, there is much to be proud of. Working with the community and council members, both past and present, and an excellent administrative team, here are some key accomplishments. We fully restored the finances of the city, increasing our credit rating and setting a sustainable future. We have a fully restored, funded, and enhanced police department. Our officers now have updated technology and equipment that they need to do the very difficult work they do. We've added 2 canine officers, Ranger and Iggy. They help defend our officers as well as help avoid violent confrontations. And we now have mental health professionals to assist with difficult situations like drug addiction and domestic violence. The police department is also a state accredited agency. Out of 250 or so, I don't have the exact number, there's only about 45 of them, and we're one. Our officers' skill and knowledge are highly sought after, and our department is recognized as a lead agency throughout the state. And I'm grateful for that. We were also able to enhance the focus on our code enforcement, helping to clean up nuisance properties and other code issues within the city. Our efforts to revitalize the city are also paying off. Back in my early years as mayor, I can remember making calls to prospective businesses and developers and not getting anything back. But with changes in administrative leadership, changes to our zoning laws, and a change to a more productive business approach and cooperative business approach, we've made Des Moines more attractive to investment. From the realization of the Des Moines Creek Business Park, highway redevelopment, our most recent Why Not Des Moines campaign, and the successful interest in the marina redevelopment, our city is realizing its potential. Other evidence of our successful strategy is illustrated with projects like the redevelopment of Wesley, the Des Moines Theater, the Container Village on the marina floor, starting with the quarter deck, Points by Vintage, Waterview Crossing, 4 Points by Sheridan, the Adriana, as well as numerous housing developments throughout the city. In the downtown, we still have some challenges with the real estate. Primarily, the primary cause is we have landlords who have owned the property for decades, but just haven't reinvested in it, or who are simply just holding the property. However, the Marina District is being revitalized, and eventually the economics will drive the land bank properties to sell. Our parks program has also been revitalized. For the first time in years, we've added parks and been able to invest in previously underserved areas. We've added lighting, replaced courts, and upgraded play equipment, making sure that there are quality places for all to enjoy. We've also revitalized much of the historic Des Moines Beach Park, and we've even added pickleball courts at the field house. Maintaining roads continues to be a challenge just because of the expense. And in Des Moines, what a lot of people don't realize is that we have over 100 linear miles. Due to the development of the Transportation Benefit District and our utility franchise agreements, we now have the first ongoing and funded paving program in more than 20 years. It's been very successful. We've added enhanced traffic and pedestrian safety features, improved ADA access. Our crosswalks are well marked. The rapid flashing beacons add to the safety of our walkable city. So working together, the council and the administration have ensured that Des Moines is functional and funded. When you look at the Des Moines Marina, with more than 50 years of aging, there's much to do, and improvements are costly, and they will have to be done in phases. But currently, the dock replacement program has started, and the North Bulkhead replacement project continues to move forward. Looking ahead, the redevelopment of the marina floor will enhance its value for generations, and we need to think in generations. The potential of a public privately funded passenger foot ferry to run between Seattle, Des Moines, and Tacoma will establish Des Moines further as a destination. And with that comes an array of business, entertainment, and other quality of life opportunities. In addition to the Des Moines Marina, the city continues to focus on Redondo. We're working to fund the replacement of the fishing pier. And we want to have it built to the same level of quality that was used when we redid the boardwalk. You know, I look back at this list and it's very humbling, and I'm very proud to have been part of the team that's made this happen. These accomplishments happen because of a dedicated and talented team that works at the city, from the administration to public works, parks, rec, law enforcement, stem to stern. We are extremely fortunate to have this amazing group of people who chose Des Moines as their place to make a difference. However, at this point, there are people both past and present that I need to thank. I'll start with my family. Michelle for her love, support, and sacrifice. Our son for his sacrifice and understanding. My parents, Ed and Norma Pina, for their wisdom, their encouragement, and their support. My brother Gary and sisters Marcy and Jennifer, and to all of our friends for their tolerance and support when we just weren't available. Colleagues past and present, I need to thank former Mayor Dave Kaplan, former Deputy Mayor Vic Pennington, and Deputy Mayor Matt Mahoney, and council members Jeremy Nutting, Louisa Bangs, Tracy Buxton, Melissa Musser, and Rob Back. I thank them for their challenging discussion, their wisdom, their respect, their fortitude, their willingness to listen and compromise, their leadership, and their friendship. And the city's administration and leadership team. City Manager Matthias, City Clerk and Communication Director Bonnie Wilkins, Harbor Masters Joe Dusenberry and Scott Wilkins, a City Attorney Tim George, Chief Operating Officer Dan Brewer, Chief Strategic Officer Susan Cesar, Finance Director Beth Ann Rowe, Police Chief Ken Thomas and Assistant Chief Mark Cooey, Police Guild Leadership Justin Kripe and Isaac Helgren, Judge Lisa Leone and Court Administrator Jennifer Johnson, and our IT team that makes these meetings happen, along with everything else that is IT connected in the city, Dale Southwick and Chris Pock, as well as the support staff of some contracted talent, Robert Holmes, Elaine Long, Anthony Hempstead, Peter Phillips, and Grant Fredericks. The Des Moines we know today would not exist or have such a bright future if it weren't for the leadership of Michael Matthias and the combined talents and efforts of these amazing professionals. These are the folks that do the heavy lifting for our benefit. We are both blessed and fortunate to have this team who chose to work here, securing Des Moines' future. So to all the residents and business owners that I've had the privilege to working with, I thank you for your support and giving me the honor of representing you and this community for the past 20 years. I hope you will stay involved and work with the city to help us to continue to realize our fullest potential. I ask that everyone please be cautious with social media. There's a great deal of misinformation out there. If you want to know about an issue, make a public records request or ask for a staff contact from the City Clerk Communication Office. Just remember, the council sets policy, but the staff is the one getting the work done, and they do it well. And when it comes to elections, it's always been my position that a resume and a Washington State background check should be posted next to the council's photos and contact information on the city's website. You as the public should be able to validate our background, even though it's not done as part of the election process. I've always found it interesting that the public knows less about their representatives than Starbucks knows about the baristas they hire. When we even background check are volunteers, but for some reason, your electeds are exempt. So finally, I'd like to share a few words of experience with the council. Remember, it's nice to be important, but it is more important to be nice. It's also important to remember that we were given 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. We've been given the public trust. They expect us to serve with dignity and to represent our city well. And finally, do the work of Des Moines. That's what we were elected to do. Don't worry about the work of other government entities. You can partner with them when it makes sense, but you need to do the work of Des Moines. Put away any special agenda. So with that, I wish you all a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, or the best of whatever this holiday time means to you and your families and your loved ones. I again thank you, and I wish this great city of Des Moines all the best. God bless and be safe. And with that, I move to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. Let the record show that all council members have a hand up. Our next meeting of the new council will be January 6th, 2022.